Good evening and welcome to all of you who've taken time today to join me in this session of how to write a tax efficient will. Today we'll be discussing how to protect the family home. And this is a topic that is of concern to lots of people because your family home is usually your main asset. And you're thinking, okay, if you have a partner or if you have children from a different marriage or a different partner, and the two of you have lived together, how best can you protect your family home? Now, there are other concerns about protecting the family home when it comes to wealth care. This is not what's going to be discussed here this evening, but what's going to be discussed is how to protect it so that your partner can either live in it without being harassed by anyone, or your children from your marriage where you acquired the home or from that relationship, or a certain set of children, your children and not the other person's children, can acquire the home. I will do a webinar on how to protect the family home from care, but tonight that is not the discussion. It's how you protect the family home for your partner or from other siblings or from a different relationship or from any other things that you want to ensure that the family home remains protected against. So this is going to be the discussion for tonight. I know lots of people are concerned about such matters because we have what is called merged families sometimes. And because we have merged families, because we've got merged families, it becomes a very worrisome thing. How can you ensure that the right people get the home? Now, sorry, I was a little distracted there a while ago because someone else was saying that the link isn't working, simply because it's saying that I'm in another meeting. But let's hope that this other person who is joining us for the first time is able to get in. I'll ask him to try again. So we can proceed with the discussion tonight, and you'll be free to ask questions about the matter because I know it's a lot of concern for everyone. Some of you may know me, but for those of you who do not know me, my name is Deborah Bowers. I am a STEP certified advanced will writer. I'm also a solicitor of England and Wales, and I'm a GDPR practitioner. I practiced in CIPPE and CIPM. And I'm also the author of How to Write a Tax Efficient Will. Welcome, Ken. It's lovely to have you. You're a real soul. You're always following me around. And I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. I know that many people say that they found the webinars quite useful and helpful. And that's what I'm hoping for, to give very useful, valuable information to people. I'm also available to assist if anyone wants my assistance on a one-to-one level to discuss their personal circumstances. I will write their wills for them. In this session and in all sessions, we deal with wills and lasting powers of attorney. So those are the two things that I will be able to give advice on. And you can have a copy of the book. It's on amazon.co.uk. And you can also join my course, which stems from the book, How to Write a Tax Efficient Will. So that's who I am, and this is why I am able to assist, because I'm finding that so many people are really so easy to write. Even though you end up not writing a tax efficient one, just write a will, because it could save you and your family so much hassle going forward. And as I have always said, I've given the story about the secret millionaire who was my dad, who didn't write a will. And that has impacted on me so strongly that I just feel it's my obligation to preach that people should have a will, whether they believe they have or they believe they have not, because you never know where you inherit property from. You don't know who is thinking about you, you're kind to them, you never know where you'll inherit property from. So just write a will, and get that sorted. If you don't want to pay a lot for it, you can do it yourself, and the book helps you do that yourself. If you feel your assets are small, if your assets are much greater, then you need to start thinking about how you can save inheritance tax in relation to the value of your property. Because it's not anything in particular that you write in the will. Sometimes it is that causes you to save the tax. It's how you manage your assets before you write the will that will help you, after you've written the will, that will help you save the tax. Sometimes it's what you put in the will as well that causes you to pay tax. Like when people put in their insurance, their pension, and all of that in the will, it just makes you pay tax, because that should not be in a will at all. That should be dealt with separately. But sometimes if that's all they have and it's below the threshold, then okay, yes. So it all depends. So make sure you either get a book or get the course so that you can write a tax efficient will. I have got to give you a disclaimer. The fact is that because I'm a solicitor and I'm speaking with you about that on this webinar, it does not mean there is a client solicitor relationship between me and you. No, that's not going to happen on this webinar. Neither is this financial advice, legal advice, investment advice, or tax advice. I am giving you information from my personal knowledge and experience and the best information that I know of. But I encourage you to verify, trust, but verify, as they say. So you trust and you verify as well. So that being said, in protecting your family home, we need to consider whether or not you are married with children. What is it that you really want to achieve in your will? Now, remember if we were writing that will ourselves, for example, let's take the family that I got married, my husband died. We had a house at that time. We had 2 children. I was still young and beautiful, as I always am. And I got to meet a new person. And because I got to meet that new person, we got married. And he probably didn't have children, or he had a child. And they're living in my home with me. What would you like to do? What are you trying to achieve when either you or your partner passes? Now, you may be in a position where all the partner's children are old now, they are all adults, we're not dealing with kids, and you want your partner possibly to remain in the property, but you want your own children to inherit the property when you are gone. So we can deal with that scenario. Or it's just like you haven't married a new partner, it's just you and your husband and your children. But at the end of the day, you want your children to inherit the property, but you don't want them to kick the father out or kick the mother out when you have passed, or make their life difficult. Because sometimes you can hear some pretty horror stories. The one parent has passed, the other parent is there, and the house was left for the children, and they want to actually kick the parent out of the property because the will wasn't written properly. If that will had been written properly, that would never happen. And so this is what we are going to discuss here. Or did the children try to get the parent out of the house so that they can do whatever they want? And the world is what it is now. It's sad, but that is the reality. And kids are going through their own circumstances. Sometimes they have partners who are pushing them to do those evil things, and just to keep that love, they then do these horrible things to their parents at the same time. So we shall be exploring those types of scenarios where we've got an adult with children, and it could be either their own children as a family, or it could be children from another relationship. And you want to make sure that that house stays with the right family, the family that you want it to stay with. So what you need to do in this case is consider your circumstances, consider what you want to achieve. What are your circumstances at this time? Do you wish to give your spouse a life interest in the property so that your spouse, this means that your spouse is able to remain in that property until your spouse passes? A life interest is until your spouse passes. Or are you in a position where, some people have spoken with me and they say, I want my wife to have the property, but if she remains single, she can stay in the property. But if she gets married, no, I don't want any other man living in my house. And so it is a case where if the woman remarries, or if the man remarries, then he or she needs to move out. They no longer have the right to remain in the property. So that's why I'm saying, consider what exactly do you want to achieve? Do you want them to be able to stay in the property if they are remarried, or do you just want them to have a life interest but unmarried? So these things might also depend on how old are you when you are writing this will. Although there is no age limit on people remarrying and starting a new life, you can be 99 plus 1 and you can start again. At the end of the day, Abraham had his son when he was about that age. So there's nothing holding anyone back. So these are some of the issues we need to consider, or you need to think, would you like your spouse to be able to sell the property and purchase another home elsewhere? Because sometimes you started life in an area which was really lovely, and then it becomes a kind of ghetto, or it's not conducive to an elderly person anymore. It's not convenient with the driving or the distance, or just the neighborhood has deteriorated and you want to move out. So would you like to keep the person just in that area? They can't do anything. They've got to stay there because that's the life interest that they've been given and they can't move. Or would you like that person to have the option of being able to sell the property, purchase another, but the same terms will apply? Or would you like the property to pass to the children of your marriage or some other person? What would you like done? Your current marriage, or the children of your current marriage, or the children of a previous marriage, your first or your second marriage? So these are the issues that you need to think of your circumstances. And that's why it's important I speak to people individually to know what their circumstances are and what they are trying to accomplish. So that when I write the will, I write a will that's specifically for you and for what you are trying to accomplish. Or would you like the property to pass the children of first or second marriage? So all these things you need to consider when you are speaking with me or thinking of, okay, I want to protect the family home, but what exactly do you want? How long do you want to preserve the family home for? I was doing a will for someone who only wanted to give her partner a 5-year residence in the property until he could resolve his issues and move out. And that's the reality of life. There's nothing wrong. There's no wrong or right about it. It's simply that as far as she was concerned, if she was to pass, her partner needed about 5 years to get over the grief and to move out of her home, because that home belonged to her and her children. She will give him 5 years residence to get his house in order, sort himself out. And she wanted him to then move out and the property passed to her children. As simple as that, within 5 years. So these are options that can be considered. So in this case, the first thing you need to consider doing, of course, we start the will, we start with who you are, and we start with then the appointment of your executors and trustees. What you would need to do is appoint the executors and trustees as your partner and your children. So the children that you want to pass that property to, you appoint them with your partner as the executors and trustees of that property. So immediately you have just the circle that you want to have control of the property, your partner and your children that you want to pass that property to. If you want to do something else, you can appoint different set of trustees, probably your partner and some other person, who will then pass the property to somebody else on your behalf. But if you have children that you can bring into the picture at the same time working with your partner, that's one way of going about it. If you don't have children and you want the property to go to your bloodline, you can appoint trustees with your partner who are going to achieve that objective for you on your behalf. So your partner will be a trustee, but not on his or her own. He will be working with the other persons whom you have appointed to act as trustees with him or her, because that is the control that you are putting in place. And once, of course, you have appointed trustees, now you can give instructions to your executors and trustees. So here we are. I'm just showing you a picture of the residential properties, usually the home that we are dealing with, the main residence. You've got this lovely home and you want to keep it with either your partner until he exits or she exits this life, or you want to ensure that it goes to your children or to your bloodline. So we have decided that we'll appoint the partner with our executors to achieve that. And what are some of the instructions you can give the trustees? Here are some of the instructions that you can give your executors. You can, for example, 1, permit your wife or civil partner to live in the house free of charge so long as he or she wishes. So that's the person's personal choice. As long as they want to live there, they can live there. It may be that they decide they're going to move out and go somewhere else or change country. People have choices, move to a different area, but as long as they wish to live there, you put a term in the will that you permit them to stay there or live there as long as they wish. Secondly, you can instruct the trustees to not to sell the house without the consent of your partner, because you are allowing your partner the freedom to sell the house, yes, but his consent or her consent is required so that another house can be purchased somewhere else for them to live in. But the selling will be with their consent. If they wanted to sell and everybody agreed, oh, we don't want that area, we don't want the house, and everybody just wants to sell the house, they can all come together and decide, yes, as by consent, everyone can decide we're going to sell the house, but there is no way they'll be able to get rid of this person without their consent. All they have to do is not consent. But a trust can come to an end, we must remember that, by the consent of all the trustees. So if they decide to sell the house, they all come together, they agree to sell, that can happen, and they forget about the house, and they distribute the funds however they should be distributed. But if it's a place to live that the partner needs, you will not be able to get that person's consent, or you put not without that person's consent, because they need a place to live. So they must be the ones making the decision as to whether or not they remain in the house or go somewhere else. No one can force them out. Or once your wife or partner has ceased living at the property, the trustees shall hold the property for your children equally, or in whatever proportions you want to have the trustees hold the property for your children. So as I said, some people say to me, look, I want my wife to have the place to stay. I want my husband to have the place to stay. But if he remarries, he needs to move out. Or if the person decides that they need to live somewhere else and they move out of the property, then the property should be held for my children. And these are some of the clauses that you can put in the will to enable you to ensure that the property goes to the persons that you want to benefit. So we are now at the point where you have given the instructions that are required in relation to the house and the property itself. And now we need to think about what else you can do. You can simply now distribute your assets, other things that you want to deal with. Because remember, what we're trying to do is protect the family home. But the family home may not be the only assets that you have. You may have other assets as well. So we can continue writing the will, saying you distribute your other assets as you see fit. You want to pay your income, you want to also to pay income from any assets that you have to your spouse or your civil partner to ensure maintenance of your spouse and the property. Because a mistake which lots of people make is that if there are other assets, they do not provide an income for the partner to keep that house maintained. You know, if the person lives 20 years from now and there's no maintenance, that house will be dilapidated, it will fall down. So it's important that you tell your trustees that they should use funds from the estate to maintain the property or to provide an income for your spouse or your civil partner. That is very important. It could be on the base as long as that person remains single, as long as that person remains unmarried, because if the person marries, then they move on to another relationship and the whole thing comes to an end. You can put conditional clauses to it, but it's a good idea to allow your partner to have income from any other property you have to maintain the house. Because if the house starts to break down on you, you're not really leaving anything for the people who come behind. So having a maintenance fund or maintenance instructions is also good. But you can, at the same time, also distribute any other assets that you want. You want to give someone the car, you want to give someone another country house somewhere, or you want to give someone any other thing, a bank, some bank accounts or some shares and stocks. You can do that as well in your will. You can continue like that. Now, I have been speaking about the residue. After you have decided how you're going to deal with the residential property, the main residence, you have given instructions to your trustees. You have distributed any other assets that you wanted to distribute. What is important now is to deal with the residue, because we have only been dealing with mainly the residential property, the main residence. So who would you like the property to go to once your spouse or civil partner is done living in it? So what you say here is that the residue of your estate will go to my children. It could be to your children equally, if those children are from the first marriage or the second marriage, your children from the second marriage, or would you like the trustees to distribute it equally amongst any other persons or in any other shares? So the residue, anything you have not provided for, you have not catered for, including that house, you're still saying that the house, because the house falls into the residue, once the partner has moved out, or once the partner has passed, or once the partner has done something, remarried, which breaks the agreement. So it falls into the residue, and you need to always make provision for the residue. So many people have not made proper provisions in the residue, and then they find themselves intestate as far as that additional property is concerned. So it's always important to make provision for the residue of your estate. So this is how we protect our main residence when we have a relationship or we have a partner that we want to provide for. As I said, if you want to take my will writing course, it's on 50% discount at the moment at deborahbowersmastermind.com 36966. I could put that in the chat. for you to take a note of. So it's in the chat here. Try to get it copied and put it in the chat for you. I think it's copied. But so just take a look at the course itself, or alternatively, you can purchase the book. It is the same information in the course in the book. It's just that I teach each aspect on the course, and the course is currently at a 50% discount. If you would like to follow me on YouTube, this is my YouTube channel, and you feel free to go and subscribe to that channel. I have so much material there which one might find useful. If your assets are not very many, there is enough information there to help you write your will without any assistance, because I've literally laid it out for you. So if your circumstances are simple and you don't have many assets at this time, you can review one of the webinars on there, which may have all the information you need to adapt to your personal circumstances. I hope you found the session useful. I'm now opening up for questions. So please let me know if you've got any questions. You can unmute yourself and ask any questions you wish to ask.
Hi, Deborah. Good evening.
Good
Interesting
evening.
topic as usual.
Thank you, Marcia, and thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you being here.
My concern is, for example, as a married woman, what if the husband does not want to make a mirror will or a joint will? What happens then? Would my will be effective?
Yes, people have choices, and if your husband doesn't want to make a mirror will, that's his choice. A mirror will can only be made if there are two people making the same will, saying the same thing, or similar things. It can have slight variations, but similar things. For example, he wants you to be in the property and you want him to be in the property. But you might say, for example, a car which you have there, you are going to give it to your daughter, whereas he may say his van, he wants to give it to some third party or son or cousin. You understand? So it might have slight variations, but it's still mirroring each other in that he wants you to stay in the house, and you also want him to stay in the house if either of you pass or survive each other by 30 days. You know, but you can write your will. If he doesn't want to write a will that works with you mirroring each other, just write your own will and say what you want in it, and that's your right. It's your right to do that, to write your own will and say what you want. You can, but it's always best when you have a couple to discuss the matter together and see if you can come to some consensus.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, guys, as I always say, my motto is anyone can write a will, but not everyone can write a tax-efficient will. And I'm telling you, it's better to have a will than to have no will. If your partner does not want to write a will, that's his problem or her problem. Make sure you write yours, because the important thing is you can, when you appoint your trustees, you tell your trustees how to manage anything that becomes yours. Okay, and that's the crux of the matter. So you have your people on the ground, so to speak, whilst you are not there, because your will has given them the instructions that you want them as to how you want them to deal with your assets. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I would like to thank all of you for turning up this evening. I know all of you are very busy people. I don't want to keep you too long, and I always value your attendance. Thank you so much. Please share the videos, like and subscribe to the channel, because I know that so many people can benefit from this. And I really don't mind that you can write your own will. That's my whole agenda, get you to write your own will. Is if you have challenges I am willing to help you write your will. Of course, I will charge a fee for my time, my paper, my expertise, but there is enough information on my site to help you write a will. Or if the pennies, you are really crunching for the pennies, please get a copy of the book. And it's only $14.99 online. And it will help you. It literally has wills in there that you can just copy and just put your name in the blanks. I mean, don't put the names of the fictitious people I use, but just put your name, and you've got a valid will, and sign it properly, you know, with 2 witnesses present at the same time. Seeing you sign and you see them sign, and you'll have a valid will. Okay, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just as simple as that, and you will have a valid will. The signing of it is what's important. The way that you sign it, and because the names of the people who were there with you will be there, their addresses will be there, and you will have a valid will. Okay, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending again today, and I will stop sharing my screen right now. I'll also stop the recording, and I shall also send the replay should you wish to share it with others or to revisit, or you'll always get it on my YouTube channel. Okay, good night, and thank you for attending.